that's the best part about what I've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is meeting all these people.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you just said you did a big thing.
8 BDRs in a row, and 17 of the 21 people you rode with, you had never, like, outside of maybe a Facebook post or something like that, you'd never really met them live or spent any time with those folks, and now they're friends.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what I've come to find out in this community, is that the friendships that you build are so huge, and the community itself. That's what I love. I mean, that's part of the great story of you doing all those BDRs, is the friendships and the relationships you built.
Yeah. For me, without a doubt, that everybody I rode with, I would not have been able to accomplish that without the people that I rode with.
Right.
Everybody was a bit of an inspiration, pushing you forward, and everybody had an excitement about riding the BDR that they were on. And so that right. Kind of,
well, that feeds into you, gives you energy, all that good stuff, right?
And
except for nobody was really there when you needed your axe and trees chopped down, right? Where was everybody else then?
There was nobody at that point. 2 days of chopping trees.
All right, now, so for everybody, little caveat here, which BDR was that? Idaho?
That was Idaho on Magruder Corridor.
Magruder Corridor. And
how many trees?
About 6 dozen.
So we don't have it confirmed. We haven't seen all the video,
and there was no people there to be with him. But we had about 6 dozen trees that had to be moved out of the way.
Whether you went over, under, right,
or through it,
yep. You got it all done.
Wow.
Yeah, got it.
That was just unbelievable.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I dug down hard on that one to keep myself moving forward. But the story that I've told about why would you do that? I wanted to do the BDRs before with a riding buddy, and we wanted to do all of them in 1 month, but which was a very large task, but there was only 7 at the time. So it was 7 BDRs that we had thought about doing in 1 month. And this reason, and this excuse, and that reason, and that excuse, it just never happened.
Right.
And I always wanted to do it. And that was, 4 years ago at least. And I always wanted to do something on the BDR. I wanted to make it something special.
Right.
And the thing that really kicked me in the ass, and I think that this is true to everybody, that has, an adventurous spirit about them.
Right.
We want to go and do something, whether it's a travel South America, North America, Prudhoe Bay,
right.
Way, wherever it might be, our personal goals, something always gets in the way, work, life, and so that 1 year, I had 3 high school friends that had passed away and my old fiance. And I was, it suddenly hit me. It was like, if not now, then when? Because every year I came up with an excuse or a reason not to do it. I couldn't do it. This came in the way every year.
So you had all this. So you had all this loss and a big one in your fiance. I mean, that's a big deal. And so you get this life moment piece, right?
Yeah, and that was, it's like, hey, if not now, then when?
Right.
Because I kept saying all these reasons I couldn't do it, and once again, it probably rings true to a lot of life in general, is saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to go here, I want to take my bike, and I want to, whatever it might be. And I finally just said, hey, if not now, then when? Because where am I going to be in a year?
Right.
So that was the big motivation to say I want to do all 10.
That was the driving force behind it all.
Yeah. I want to do all 10 within a year. Nobody has done it, so that was my goal. Do all 10 in a year, ride with everybody, and complete as much of the each BDR as possible.
You did didn't you do 99% or something like that of all of it? I mean,
all of them.
And we're not talking taking the, I mean, you did all the expert sections and everything, right?
Most of all the expert sections.
Unless something was completely closed off, right? But I mean, you did all the expert section. That's a bear. That's a bear. I mean,
so folks,
I was saying the same thing.
So folks, if you don't know the expert sections on these BDR, especially, and I'll get to ask him this, but these expert sections can really take it out of you because they're difficult. You got to be mentally, physically, prepared to handle these expert sections, right? I mean,
it's a big deal, right?
And so in that grouping, and let's include Wyoming because you did the 11th one as well. And if you haven't seen some of that, I got the early footage of Wyoming, but I was out. But everybody asks this question, like, what's the most difficult BDRs? And I don't even know if difficult. Thank you. I don't know if difficult is the right question. I think it's the most either enjoyable, challenging, or memorable BDR. Like, if you had to, like, what's your top couple that you really truly enjoyed, remembered, and like, I could do that one again, possibly, or whatever. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I do. I get that question. What's the hardest one? What's the easiest one?
But I think that's a personal thing, right? I mean,
it's going to be personal because
right.
So I would say that the most difficult had nothing to do with the actual riding difficulty of the BDR itself, because it was Magruder for me.
Because
for spending those 2 days out on Magruder in Idaho,
chopping trees.
You
became a lumberjack at that stage,
I
right?
was absolutely a lumberjack. I could have been a cable show.
And you lost your axe.
I lost my axe. I was in Washington somewhere. I don't know if you found an axe in Washington, that's mine. It's a Pulaski, worn down pretty much. But that was a really, I ready for the morning. We had already known that the trail was blocked because people had already come back the day before, and they said it's, you can't get through. And so we already knew that. So I bought that axe at the general store.
Right.
I had a saw and I had a shovel just in case, one of those collapsible shovels for snow.
And it came in handy.
And it did, And so, I set out there. I was like, I'm going to do this. Not knowing just what was in front of me.
I'm going to do this. Let's see where this is going.
Yeah. So I got to the summit at the beginning. You ride in. It was about 32 miles of riding into the trail systems. It's wide. It's an easier route. Really, it is. Magruder is easier route. And when I was getting to the summit and I started going further in, literally there was a fella on a pedal bike, coming up the other side. So I started talking with him and asked him questions about him coming through, and he's like, are you going through? I'm like, oh yes, I'm going to go through. He's like, there's some trees that are down up there. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I've got my axe. He said, no. So there's like 100 trees down in front of you. And I really thought that he was just exaggerating, but he wasn't. I mean, it was row after row after row after row after.
Was it from the harsh winter, I'm assuming, or
it happens every year. It's through the winter. It's through the seasons of fall.
It's normal.
So it's just a fall. And they normally go through the ADV community or the Jeep community goes through and they cut it
out. They cut a gap. Yeah.
And it was just, I started at, I don't know, 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning or something. And it was dark. It was at night. I was using the headlights to go around things. I just got to a point where I was absolutely exhausted. I couldn't do any more. There was another tree down. I put my tent up. I put the bike right next to the tent because I thought if a tree comes down, it's going to hit the bike and
block
give me a
it.
little
Right.
bit of room,
Yeah.
The fellow that I was riding with, Corey, was on the other side waiting for me, and he texted me through my InReach and just said, "Hey, are you making it through?" I was like, "No, not tonight." He said there are 2 storm cells heading your way, and I just remember sitting there in the tent, and I could literally hear the winds picking up and coming up the mountainside, and within, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, I heard a tree fall. And I'm like,
Oh,
great.
Jesus. Yeah.
Here I am. I'm chopping through trees that have come down across this road because of storms and winter, and I'm camping out there. I remember biting into my granola bar, and I was so dehydrated by the end of the night. I carried 6 liters of water, and I was really down to almost nothing already. And I just remember chewing on that granola bar, and it was like
Dry.
Sawdust, and I didn't even finish it. I couldn't even finish it. So next morning, got up, no trees down around me, except the one that blocked me. started packed up, started cutting through, and started going through. And there was times when I literally just sat there and I was just mentally, physically exhausted. I broke my nose out on the trail. I ran out of water twice and was able to find creeks, used a filter and refill.
Right, yeah.
So that was the hardest 8 miles stretch that out of any of the BDRs, that 8 miles,
Because of the not only the physical, but and then compounded with the mental aspect of it. Because you almost feel defeated at that stage, right? Because it's just like tree after tree, and there was no, and I'm sure because you're on top of the mountain, right, Magruder Pass, and I don't know anything about it, but I'm assuming that the trees are just so you can't go down and around.
It's side, the side are up on one side.
Yeah, because you're vertical here or straight down, and you just got a road, and so you're SOL.
So some I could go a very few you could actually go around where the ground leveled out.
Right.
So I found ways of getting around some of those. There were some that I built a ramp over a few of those because it was flat. The tree was just so big. I was like, I can't chop that. So I built a little ramp to get up and over.
Sure.
And then there was that really big one that I went under because it was leaning against the one side
and
of the other.
Dug a hole out, basically the trench out. Yeah.
Pulled the bike through.
And folks, remember, we're talking about a GSA, 600 pounds with gear, so you're more like 650 or plus, and you're exhausted. So imagine trying to drag your bike underneath that.
Yeah, that was a very good. I think the second one that I won't forget was Lockhart Basin, in Utah, outside of Moab.
Okay.
I was with Parker, my buddy Parker, once again, someone I had just met, great friend now. And there came a time when you could take a right-hand turn and go the easier way and go into Moab, or you take a left and you goes up around and goes into Lockhart. And we were like, well, we're going to take the expert trail. We got there. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. The distance, I can't remember what the distance is, on Lockhart. 30 something miles, I think, or something like that. And we were like, oh yeah, we can get through that. I had 6 liters of water. I had 8 liters of water with some mixture with electrolytes.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 4, I think. It was over 100 degrees, and we went out there, and the ledges out there are just insane, absolutely insane for the big bikes, loaded big bikes, And Parker started suffering from heat exhaustion. He had the cramps, he had the shakes, he had the tunnel vision, felt nauseous, and he was struggling. I started struggling as well, and we literally just camped out on the trail because we were out there for so long.
Just done
for the night. Couldn't see ahead. I just remember 3 really large steps going down, and I was just like, that's it, we're done for the night. Camped out there. We were running out of water again after all that. I mean, I literally took water and I was pouring it over his head to keep his
just
body
to try to cool him down.
Yep. So that was a really dangerous situation. So another challenge. We came really close
to hitting the SOS,
pushing that SOS button. And then the people that when we finally got through the next day into Moab, the people that we were with, Bill Whitaker and his group, they had to have push the SOS the day before to get one of their riders out. So it's a tough area. I mean, I think one of my biggest advice is if it says it's expert, just take that as yes, it's an expert trail. It's difficult.
And to your point, you got to be prepared for that stuff too, right? This is not like the one thing that I've learned, even just in my short experiences, never have enough water.
Because you just never know what's going to happen, right? And so always make sure that you have water, some type of containers, anything, right? Anything that has some water.
And I've heard that story from others as well, whether it's on YouTube or just talking to individuals such as yourself, that you get in those situations, especially out there in the mountains, because it's so dry, and you don't realize how much. And folks, if you don't realize, those that do this, you exert a lot of energy, and you're sweating more than what you really know, because sometimes it just dries real quick because you're riding and stuff like that. So you don't really understand how much your body is exerting, and then you realize it, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks.
And
There are definitely, the California BDR going out of Yuma. There's a section on the map which talks about very deep sand. True, it's true, absolutely true. I was with Tom Asher and Rick Hoffman at that point, and give all the credit in the world to Rick for going out there and trying to get through that. Because he has a disability. And it was deep sand. It wasn't even sand. It was more like a
powder, right?
Yeah, it's not in that section. It's not powder. It's basically a dried lake bed or something, or stream or whatever.
Right.
But it's like a granular, and so it makes it even softer to get through. We got him through halfway. We were doing leapfrogging with his bike, and he would get on the back of Tom's bike and ride up, and so we did that just to get through. It wasn't going to work. It was upper 90s again, and so we backed out, went all the way back around, and then Tom and I completed that area. But when we were going through the Moab section, I just remember soft sand in that area. You got to keep your speed up to stay on top of that sand. We both have GSAs. We're both loaded.
We're kind of loaded up on their GSs, and I was going to dovetail and segue into the question of
I think Mr. Asher has a little bit different packing advice for people, doesn't he?
He does.
Versus maybe what you were packing?
Oh, he does. Absolutely.
Because Chad likes to have like 3 or 4 hats.
maybe only one hat would do. Tom, you can comment below. Just that saying.